Welcome back to Her Expat Life, the YouTube channel that is dedicated to informing, inspiring, and motivating females who live and love and have a global lifestyle. So, our mission is simple. We aspire to advance and empower the lives of women who live and work abroad. We are a boutique global mobility firm that provides services to female expats and digital nomads who are entrepreneurs, creatives, professionals, and investors who desire to advance their global lifestyles, networks, and portfolio. Please visit herexpatlife.com to get a comprehensive listing of all the services we offer in the hopes of serving our community best. Other than giving you information to help you advance your global lifestyle, we also love to interview aspiring females, inspiring females, females who are doing incredible things with their lives. And today is no different. I am very, very happy to say that we have Sylvia Yu Friedman in studio with us today. And we're going to be chatting to her about her wonderful life journey, her interesting life journey, and her latest book. So, just to give you a bit of a background on who she is an author who is here to talk to us about her second book, Fearless. Whatever your age, Fearless will inspire you to embrace your journey, confront adversity, and seize your destiny. Sylvia has led philanthropic initiatives for some of the world's wealthiest families, transforming countless lives while shining a light on some of the worst human rights abuses of our time. For 2 decades, her pioneering investigations into the dark underworlds of sex trafficking and modern-day slavery, even at the risk of her own life, shattered barriers and charted a course for a new generation of philanthropists and changemakers. In this captivating book, Sylvia takes readers on a journey through her life, marked by bravery, compassion, and a relentless commitment to changing the world for the exploited. Sylvia, it is an honor to thank you and welcome you today to our studio. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Well, thank you so much, Alexia, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here, and your network is it's very cool. It's one that I wish I had when I first moved to Beijing in 2004, and there were no resources out there connecting us expat women. So I really admire what you're doing. And oh, and one more thing, it's my fifth book actually.
Oh,
But
you're
yeah,
flipping.
I misled you, and I didn't make that clear, but no problem. I'm just so thrilled to, yeah, just be part of your show, and yeah, thank you so much, Alexia.
Thank you for the kind words, and we're really glad that our community that's growing is reaching people and serving our community best. Wow, 5 books, Sylvia. You have been very, very busy. That's very, very impressive.
Oh, workaholism is to blame.
Uh,
Workaholism, really, just working around the clock.
okay, let's go straight into it. So, Fearless
Yeah.
is described as a guide and a memoir. What inspired you to blend these two genres into one powerful narrative?
Gosh, yeah, that's a great question. I wanted to write about my life experiences, the difficult moments, rock bottoms, the challenges that I went through that really left an indelible mark on me, even were traumatic. And I wanted to turn what I learned into pointers, tips, advice for others who may be going through similar situations. Because when I was in my 20s many years ago, I won't say when, I wish I had read a book like this, or even during my mid-career transitions. You know, I wish I had someone or a book where they were talking about how they went through the uncertainties, the fears of taking a risk and not having a job, and also, you know, just feeling like a loser when I didn't have a business card, and all that I had to wrestle and work through. So yeah, that's why I blended memoir, because I wanted to reveal, like, warts and all, kind of a excavation of my inner self and memories, and then also, yeah, just offer kind of like a self-help approach.
That's really amazing because I feel like from the outside looking in, someone can look at your life and go, wow, she's got it all. She's probably always had it all. And for you to be vulnerable and kind of talk about, hey, there were some dark moments or challenging things. I think, especially we live in a very groomed social media world where everything is Instagram perfect. And I think it's really
Yes.
helpful for young women to see the
Yes.
truth of someone's journey, the ups and the downs as well.
Yes. I love how you put it, Alexia. I think it's important for me to talk about the hard things, the things that were ugly, right? That were like toxic women with queen bee syndrome when I was young. And I didn't have anyone tell me what politics were. No mentors could articulate, hey, when you go into an office, be careful because there will be really like terrible personalities in there. No one had warned me, Alexia. I learned the hard way. And I think that's given me an empathy for women at all stages. And that's why I love what you're doing at Her Expat Life, because you're supporting women. And I've been an expat in Asia, Beijing, then Hong Kong since 2004. And there's like a unique bond, when expat women in any given city meet up at a conference or, coffee shop or bar, like, there's this common, oh, you too. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. Right. And this instant connection. And so I've had some really amazing friendships that came out of that, and with women, also with some men. But yeah, the expat women friends have really made a big difference. And I really believe that I want to give back at this stage of my life, and it's important to be able to pass on like the wisdom that I learned the hard way. And if I can give someone else a cheat code or a shortcut, that brings fulfillment like nothing else.
So let's talk a little bit about your younger days. So you mentioned this book is the one thing you wish you had when you were younger, right? So what
Yes.
message do you hope young women take away from this book? What is the most profound message you hope
Oh,
people take from
gosh. It'd be a long answer if I answered it like with, yeah, what I want to share from A to Z, but I'll try to compact it. Um, yeah, there's so many moments in the book, different aspects. For one, I was rejected for being a girl. So I went through gender discrimination, and I wrote about that, how my dad wanted a boy. My grandfather also wanted a grandson. And that affected me very adversely because I ended up not feeling accepted for who I was. And there was always an element of I had come up short and I wasn't enough. I wasn't good enough for my dad or my grandfather, even though they never said it out loud. I can just feel the shadow, the specter of it. And that led to me trying to prove myself to my dad. Hey dad, I'm better than all the sons in the world. Like, and I remember competing against men, not women so much, but with men, the boys. And then I didn't realize until I attended a seminar, and there was someone who was talking about family systems, and he was like a coach, and he was like an expert on families, right? And he instantly picked up. He just asked a few questions, and then he knew what one of my struggles were, and it was the rejection by my dad for being a girl. And then he encouraged me, this mentor figure, this speaker. He encouraged me to forgive my dad, and that was just a really momentous watershed moment. And so, in a nutshell, I recognized my issue, the root of the performance orientation, wanting to win my dad's approval through performance, through achieving, doing things, and then I had to, lay it down, and that was, yeah, just a big turning point. And since that time, and that was 2009, I've spoken with more than 110 women in Asia who had the same. And I also wrote about this on LinkedIn, and men wrote me, like really successful men. And they said, I struggle with the same thing, but it's either with my mom or I'm trying to win my dad's approval. So that's one key lesson that I wanted to pass on. And it's driven me to want to fight for gender equality, right? To bridge the gap, like the salary gap, board membership. I mean, you name it. And around the world, girls and women have less access to water, to legal rights, everything under the sun. And so that's why it was important for me to include in a chapter, at the end of the chapter, like the statistics, right? And hopefully, expat women, Her Expat Life, the network, can do something about it too. Because I truly believe that when we band together and pool our resources and our influence, we can really create a ripple effect that can bring transformation. And another thing that I wanted to convey was, um, identify your self-limiting beliefs, right? Like, so the theme in a lot of the stories, like my experiences with toxic boss, who I nicknamed Kim Jong Soo, right? Because she reminded me of Kim Jong Un, and it was like the moment of lightness and levity each day. And I remember that moment when I came up with that nickname. Like, I don't think I came up with it. I think God or somebody dropped it into my mind,
Higher powers.
and I laughed like 100 times, like at least, like for weeks and weeks. It just brought me so much joy and laughter. And so, yeah, just it's in these moments where so many stories, like the common theme is, you know, what do you believe about yourself?
Mm.
What percentage, or how many of these beliefs actually limit you from reaching your fullest potential, right? And the fear, like what's holding you back, right? What's the root of these fears? And so I would say that, yeah, of all the adversities, rock bottoms, toxic offices, bosses, heartaches, through like men who were stupid, and I was even stupider for picking them in the first place.
Yeah.
And yes, yeah, the root of it is knowing yourself, know your identity, overcome your fears, and know your calling, use your voice. Yeah, so these are the lessons that I feel like everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to be firm in their identity, firm in how to use your voice, and to be fearless. Because if you can be fearless, you will reach your fullest potential, and there's no limit to what you can do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I feel like both of these points are kind of linked, right? It's the inner child work. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
because
Yes.
oftentimes what people's
Yeah.
self-doubting beliefs or the things that are holding them back
Mm.
are things that they were taught or somehow started believing about themselves when they were children, and we don't realize how much of that we're still carrying, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
as adults, it feels like a lot of the work is just looking
Yeah.
at the younger version of yourself and like
Yeah.
healing that part of who you
Yes.
are. And
That's a good way of putting it. It's a good way of putting it. We do get a blueprint that's so powerful from our parents,
yeah.
and it's hard to break. It's hard to break unless we're intentional about it.
Okay, so your book talks about serving others as a path to true freedom. Can you elaborate on a moment or the moment when you had this realization?
Wow, yeah, many moments, many moments. There was a time when I was in China, and I was investigating this one notorious brothel, and a frontline worker suggested take your phone, go through this dark alley of one of the most notorious brothels in the area, right? Pretend you're a tourist. And I was thinking in my gut, I don't feel comfortable with this. And I feel terrified, right? Sheer terror. And the same frontline worker actually said, oh, there's this one club where um, it's it's uh, a thing where they play music, and at some point they'll stop the music, turn off the light, and the men can do whatever they want to the women during that time the lights are off. And she actually said, why don't you go and document it, get it on film? And I was like, are you kidding me? And so anyways, I really was stuck in a pickle because I wanted to get the footage for a documentary that I was making. And so I thought, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do it. And I did try because I thought I really want to get the footage of the women who are trafficked on camera, and for the world to know, for something to be done, right? If that's possible. It just felt like something I needed to do at that moment, at that time. And so anyways, I went through this alley, pretended to be a tourist, thought I had triumphed over, the thugs and the mamasans, who were hovering and guarding their merchandise, the young trafficked women who looked miserable, right? And so I thought I got the footage. I'm in, racing back to our getaway car. And then suddenly, like five of them, mama sans and like thugs with pasty white, skin, because they're nocturnal animals and probably don't get up during the day and they don't get vitamin D. And they surrounded the car and they were like, get out. We know you're posting on, their Twitter, right? Their form of Twitter. We know you're posting on Weibo. Get out, get out. And my fingers are shaking, but I managed to delete the footage like in a matter of seconds. And I showed them, see, I have no footage, right? And but they were in the delete section. So had they looked into that file, they would have seen it, but they didn't. And so anyways, at one point, so they were, yelling in my face 2 inches away or 1 inch away. At one point I thought, okay, I'm going to be hurt. And this is it. My life was flashing before my eyes. And I felt so sad that I couldn't say goodbye to my family, my beloved family. And then suddenly one of the thugs screamed, the police are coming. And they scattered like cockroaches. And so that was part of a trip where I was meeting trafficking survivors, like young women, including this young woman who had been sold at 14 by her friend's auntie, right? And at 14, and then she was sold to an older farmer in his 70s, and he chained her up like a dog in his home and would take off the chain whenever he wanted to use her. And then she got pregnant, actually, within a year. And she had no idea what pregnancy was. And the baby slipped out and all that. Yeah, she managed to escape, but then she escaped and was found by a trafficker who put her into a brothel and forced her to work. Yeah, so she went from one frying pan to another. And had she had trauma healing or restoration or, some intervention, like after she escaped from the husband who chained her up, she may have been able to escape that, working for the madam or the woman pimp, trafficker. And so this was part of my exploration. And I even stayed in a shelter for over a week I felt really depressed after that, actually, after that experience, because there was another survivor there with a young son, and I can just pick up her despair, you know. And then I even met a little three, I think she was three, and she was a daughter of a trafficker and a young teenage trafficking victim who managed to escape. And she, like, when this frontline group found this little girl, she was like maybe 1.5 years old, almost two, and she was swearing like a trucker. She was swearing because she was copying her dad. Her dad, the trafficker pimp, was still working, trying to lure men. And so this little girl was like, "Hey, you want a woman?" You know, it was awful. So I guess it's during this time where I really understood that these frontline workers, they're giving their all, and they seem very fulfilled, very content. And I was going through a divorce at that time. This was 2006, 7, and I was looking for meaning and looking to heal from that awful, you know, just the awful experience of a divorce, which can take a lot out of you. And when I began to put my eyes on those who were suffering and who were in desperate need, that brought me peace. That brought me a sense of wholeness that I hadn't had before. So that was the beginning of that. And it's just been reinforced through me being involved in campaigns, doing more interviews, investigations. And yeah, I'm just very grateful. I'm very grateful I had that revelation, because it changed my life. It was absolutely an important turning point.
Mhm.
And because I know too many people, too many professionals who take, and they're busy, you know, with their careers. They're just so focused, and I've been there, self-absorbed, focused on myself, and I was just so unhappy, right?
Mhm.
Really unhappy. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. And yeah, it's good to hear that moments of inspiration can come from seeing the darker elements of humanity, because I'm
Yeah,
sure you also went home after some days and were just completely like sapped of energy,
yeah,
to be seeing that side of humanity and the terrible
mhm,
conditions that these girls are in. I'm
yeah,
sure it took its toll on you as well, but that you were able to take from that and for it to motivate you is
mm.
quite a beautiful thing. And thank you for the work that you do, because I think it's very important that these stories are told, as difficult
Oh,
and
thank
as
you.
dangerous as it can be at times, because
Mhm,
there are definitely communities of females that the world
mhm.
has forgotten about. And it's sad.
Yeah,
It's sad to hear these
yeah,
stories, but work
yeah.
like yours is bringing it to the forefront.
Oh,
And
thank you.
hopefully, as females, we can support each other more in bringing
Yeah,
these stories to light. Yeah.
absolutely, because I feel like we can make a difference when
Yeah.
we get together. We can really, you know, because women care. When I tell these experiences to other women, they're moved. We
Yeah.
can't help it. We can't help it. It's
Yeah.
there's just something that touches us to our core, right? It just brings shivers. Yeah, and you know, the one thing that I thought about that um, made me more empathetic was, wow, what if I had been born in that family, right?
Exactly what I was thinking.
Right, right. It could
Yeah.
have happened to any of us. Like, what makes us different, right?
Yeah, yeah, you could have just been born to a different family, a different part of the
Yeah,
world, different
yeah,
circumstances, different time, and none of
yeah,
us can control where we're born and which family we're born into. So it's literally a gamble. Like could have easily been any one of us. And I think
absolutely.
females, we're
Yeah,
naturally more able to tap into empathy. And I think that's why we can suspend our sense of reality and really feel for those that are in these situations.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so writing a book, especially if it's a memoir, I can imagine can be a difficult process.
Mm,
and some parts of the book is probably more difficult to write than other
mhm,
parts of the book.
mhm,
So, what was the most challenging chapter or part of
mm,
your story to write in
mm.
Fearless, and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. The most challenging, there were a few of them, and maybe the first one, right? Where, uh, yeah, it could have been the gender discrimination because it was something that I hadn't written publicly about. And then the identity one. The identity was challenging because I had wrestled and struggled so long with my identity, right? And it's it's something that I wanted to articulate it the best I could, right? So I was like, I want to get it right, and um, so yeah, so I would say it's those chapters. But the difficult moments, like the toxic office
Yeah.
parts, were easy. I was like, it was fun. And the other difficult part was writing about my husband's cancer journey. He overcame cancer 5 years ago. He had surgery. He's cancer free, but he still has to get checked every 6 months. And so that going through that as a caregiver to my husband, yeah, that was really tough to write about. However, it ended up being our greatest launch pad because we became fearless. Because when you're forced to stare at death, and cancer is like that because it's the dreaded C word, and you just never know what could happen. And and then after we came out of that, it took us a while. It took us a while to just process, recover. And then once we did, we were so fruitful. And then the pandemic hit at like soon after. And interestingly, while everyone else was like moaning and, oh, it's so hard. And some people were really like, they felt like a fish out of water, right? They were like immobilized and depressed. But my husband and I were like thriving. Like he punched out a book. I birthed a book. We wrote a screenplay
Wow.
for a movie, and the novels based on that screenplay is coming out next year and next spring. And so we were very productive. And I think it's because we went through such a valley of adversity and suffering with cancer. And then when you come out of hard times and you process it well, it can really be a womb, a life-giving womb. So there's a phrase that a speaker once shared that I co-opted. It's a womb, not a tomb. So what we think is death and is bringing like such a terrible sentence is actually a springboard to birthing things, like a
Mm,
womb.
mm.
And that's, yeah, I want people to remember that whatever you think is so horrible or so stressful, it could be the greatest asset. It could be the greatest advantage.
So, do you have any tips for people who are maybe at the beginning of a very difficult journey, whatever it could be, health wise, career
Mhm.
wise, and kind of can't
Yeah,
see that light
yeah,
at the end of the tunnel? What is,
sure.
how, from your
Mhm.
experience, what are the things that someone can do to set themselves
Yeah,
up for learning the lessons from experiences like these?
yeah, yeah. No, and I've spoken about this before about transition. So anytime you're going through like a job loss or a health change, um, it's a transition. Like we go through transitions in life, in relationships, career, our health, and we just have to remember who we are.
Yeah.
Remember who we are. Remember all that you've been able to overcome,
Mm,
right? And you can even catalog them. Write down all the things you survived. Have that congress of support. That's what my friend Allison Helitzer talks about in the book I helped her I helped edit her book, and she's a expat therapist
Mm.
who wrote about her expat journey in Hong Kong, in Singapore, and the East and Western cultural influences. Anyways, I didn't mean to plug her book, but I did. um, but she would describe it as a congress of support. I describe it as have like a personal board of people in your life who, with their different strengths, can remind you of different things, right? And if, especially if you're at the beginning, I also say take care of your health, right? Take care of yourself, mind, body, and soul. Make sure you exercise, do lots and lots of cardio, whether it's like out there sweating, running, jogging, or on a treadmill if you don't like running outside, right? Like weight lift, eat, take your supplements, and journal. Journaling has been my lifeline. It has really helped transform my life because I was able to just pour out all the negative emotions and the positive things that I learned, everything in between. And it really helps you process and know yourself. Like sometimes I don't even know what I'm thinking until I start journaling. Right? Isn't it
That's so,
true?
yeah.
Yeah. And so those are my major takeaways, but really having a buddy so that when you are down and depressed, like I've been there, after, like right after the divorce and just feeling so depressed, right? Or after the near death experience, I had PTSD symptoms
Yeah.
where I would hear a creak in the morning and I just would sit up and in a panic, all sweaty, right? And so, yeah, having a buddy check in, friends check in on you, walk together, it's key. Yeah, having someone to really pour your heart out to.
Mm. Community, which is
Yeah.
what we always talk about here. Yeah,
Yeah.
community. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know better than most because you're an expat. But the revolving door is real
Yes.
for expats.
Yes.
And in Hong Kong, interestingly, it was a few years ago where all my friends that had been with me from the beginning when I first moved to Hong Kong in 2011 all
Mm.
left. By
That's
a
right.
few years ago, the old crowd were gone. And it was so interesting because I found myself thinking, "Oh wow, I literally have to start all over again."
Yeah.
Literally. And it's easier when you've been in the city compared to it's a new city, you got to
Okay.
make new friends, and you're in a busy, like I'm in a busy place. So people were saying, "I'd love to meet you again," and I'm expecting like next week, and they're saying, "Oh, my calendar is open in 3 weeks,"
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I just wasn't used to that, and so anyways, yeah, that's the advice I would give. That yeah, just have those friends, and really take care of yourself during that time. Journal as
Prioritizing self-care
yeah,
is always,
yeah,
always important. I think,
yes,
especially during difficult times, that's really when you see the benefits of
yeah.
doing it for yourself.
But it goes out the window.
Yeah.
Self-care, it really, right? Because then, like, one starts to emotionally eat, and anyways, yeah,
Yeah. It's probably the most difficult thing to keep consistent, but it's probably the most important thing to
yes,
consistently do for yourself. And I
yeah,
think people, especially females, we're really good at prioritizing other people above ourselves. So
yes,
it's like,
yes,
oh, I wanted to go to gym today, but this other person needs something from me, so I'm going
yeah,
to sacrifice the thing I need for myself in order to do
yeah,
for the other, right?
yeah, yeah,
But at the end of the day, it's probably the most selfless thing you can do is to take care of yourself so that you can
mhm,
give to your
yes,
friends, to your community, to those around
absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Stephen Covey described it as you have to take care of the chicken in order to lay the golden eggs. And a lot of people, they do the reverse. They'll take
Exactly.
care of the golden egg and want to just lay them, like lay as many as they can. And then the chicken it's gonna die, right?
Yeah, the chicken's like, can someone
Doing
help me,
it
please?
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. That's a really good analogy. Okay, so in what ways do you believe your book stands out from other motivational books aimed at young adults, especially women in Asia?
Mm. Yeah. Well, it's for all ages, really. But I do know that, some young people are gravitating towards it. And I guess what makes it different is there aren't that many Asian authors writing about these topics, writing about self-help, writing about a call to a women's movement. And because I've over the last decade, I felt like, yeah, I'm seeing glimmers of this women's movement. Like, I feel like it'll be the largest in history, and I feel like it'll start in Asia, and then also with my different backgrounds, like I had a two-track career in journalism and filmmaking, and then the second one was philanthropy advising, working with some of the wealthiest families, and that led to me directing funding to the earliest anti-trafficking projects. And interestingly, my husband was doing the same thing. So we were on parallel tracks, and then our paths merged when we met, and we just basically continued doing what we were doing. It was really fascinating. And so maybe that's a good way to share with people, like in how do you find a mate, right? You
Yeah,
find someone who's going and doing, something that complements what you're doing, and you don't have to alter your life around
yeah,
that person. So yeah, so I think that's part of it. The unique experiences of me exposing different forms of trafficking in Asia, that I think I'm the main one or the only one who's done this and dedicated this amount of time,
mm,
and then talked about like all the different experiences I went through. And so yeah, so I'm just humbly hope that people will learn something, and that it can help and empower as many women as possible. And even men have said that they really appreciated reading it. So I who knew?
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you juggle everything that you're involved in, because you've spoken about it a little bit, but
Mhm.
you're involved in high profile private equity deals, including with the NBA. How do you balance such demanding professional engagements with your
Mhm.
advocacy work? Like, how do you keep everything going?
Yeah. Well, I don't keep everything going at all. Like I feel like now I'm really in the private equity investing world, and the advocacy is kind of in the back burner. However, I that will always be part of me. And
Yeah.
and through the network that I'm meeting, like I'm loosely developing a network of investors for good, or like investors who want to do the right thing, or do like righteous investing, like moving the earth, changing countries for good, for the people's good. So that, I guess, through that, my advocacy is taking a different turn, or looks differently in this season. And I don't have the bandwidth to do a lot of the trafficking work. And I was developing a TV series on human trafficking, and I'm not the only one doing that. There are others who are helping me. And so this season, it's the investment work, and then it's talking about my book to
Mhm.
whoever wants me to, and I'll assess, like, is this right? I don't take everything, every opportunity, but yeah, so that's part of it, because of my limited time.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to, but
Yeah.
because I have to be picky and choosy until the end of the year. So the plan is I'm going to relax more, and take it easy until the end of 2024, and then next year I foresee a very busy year, And I don't juggle everything well at all, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, thank you for being so honest. Because again, I think people from the outside look in and go, "Wow, she does all of these things. She must be
Yeah.
superhuman." How? But it's interesting that you're referring to it as seasons, and I think that's quite a
Yes.
nice way to look at it. Like in life, in with projects, I kind of see it as
Yes.
this the season for this,
Yes.
you know, and then maybe you take the pressure off of yourself to be all things to all people all the time, because it's not really
Absolutely.
possible, and that leads to
Yes.
burnout. And again,
Yes.
it goes back to self-care. Like you
Yes.
have to prioritize certain things at certain times. So thank you for
Yes.
being very transparent with that, because a lot of times I think people want to give the illusion of, oh no, I've
Yeah.
got it all figured out, when
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
not the case.
It's important to for me to be honest because I don't have it all. Like I no women can have it all, right?
No.
And because something will suffer, right? And so what helps me is I hire a cleaner. If I had to clean on top of everything, oh my goodness. And so some days I'm like I haven't cooked in a long time because I'm either buying food that's like, home cooked type of food, or we order in, right? And so but during seasons when I have more time, then I'm cooking, right? But it's important to me that I eat healthy, so there's a lot of salads and all that. Otherwise, it can really affect your outlook, everything,
Yeah,
just what you ingest, right?
definitely.
So, yeah, no, so it is important for people to know seasons, to look at it in seasons, look at it as what am I supposed to do for the next few months? And I used to make the mistake of hanging on to projects
Mm,
when it was not really the time, and I should have let it go and released it like months before or a year before. And then that led to fatigue, right?
yeah.
And near burnout. So I do what gives me life, what brings joy, right? And I guess Marie Kondo talks about it with stuff, but I talk about it as in, yeah, where is it life giving, right? And I do that. And it's important that we don't lead people on, because then other people could compare themselves, and it leads to this unhealthy cycle. So
100%. And I think, especially females talking to females, we have to be honest about our experiences,
yeah,
because we already
yeah,
have the world telling us, you need to be perfect. You need to be all things to all people. You must be
yeah,
superwoman. And if we
yeah,
don't break that stigma within our own community and
yeah,
like just show each other, like, hey, sometimes, things work out
yeah,
and everything's great. Other times we're all struggling. We're all got like our own journeys we're on, or things that we're busy with. So again,
yeah,
thank you for being
absolutely.
very honest and
Oh,
transparent with your truth. I think it's a very empowering.
happy to that was part of the book. It's why, I mean, why bother, why
Yeah,
bother to write a book if I'm not going to be honest, brutally honest. And so, yeah, that's the kind of book I wanted to write, not something so polished, but raw, nostalgic, sentimental often. And just wanted to help and empower people, because I'm at a stage in life where I feel like I've done a lot of the things that I wanted to do. And so now, I'm going to be with a group with this startup called B and the letter E, period. We're going to launch like different things, like a journal that goes along with this book, and master classes, different things like that. So, yeah,
amazing.
stay tuned.
So, as we head towards the end of this interview, I want to end off talking specifically to maybe our younger audiences, younger females who are maybe in their 20s,
Mhm.
um, and maybe just talk about, pieces of advice that maybe you would have
Sure,
wanted to hear at
sure.
that age.
Yes.
So, what challenges do you think that young women face today that are maybe different from the challenges that you and I faced when we were younger? And
Yeah.
what advice would you give to women trying to come up in a quite a crazy world at the moment.
Yes, yes, yes. I didn't have social media, the
Mm,
bombardment of perfectly airbrushed
yeah.
images and curated happiness.
Mm,
Um, and so it's different. My era was so different, and my generation struggled a lot with identity, right? Especially those who had bicultural identity, like Korean Canadian or Chinese American or Indian Australian, or right. So we struggled a lot, but seems like the younger generation now, there's more acceptance of ethnic groups.
yeah.
And but what's probably universal is the loneliness, right? Especially as expat women, and it's the revolving door, right, syndrome. And I would say try to prioritize friendships, like
Mm,
solid friendships, and be a great friend,
yeah.
right? That's the key in long lasting relationships, making friends. You got to be that great friend. What kind of friend do you want? Be that friend to others, and give. I mean, not to the point of hurting and crossing your own boundaries,
Yeah.
but addressing the loneliness is key, especially if you don't have your family around or longtime friends. Because even if you do have good friends, there's a comfort when I meet with friends I've known forever, right? From my hometown. It's
Yeah.
different. It's different
It is
because
different.
they know things about you, they know your history.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what leads to the loneliness, because you're in the early days. I remember being around a lot of people who didn't know me, right, for a long time. And um, so that's part of it. The relationship part is key, because that can really help you succeed
Mm,
in your career, right? Having those connections can really lead to other business deals and opportunities, open doors. Um, and another thing is for young people, young women, journal, right? Again, journal, get to know yourself, know your identity, and know your weaknesses. And people say that the younger generation don't know how to stick to something. I don't know if that's true or not. Sounds like a stereotype, but yeah, recognize where your weaknesses are and do all you can to improve in those areas, and learn and grow from it. And I would also say, like, read as much as you can, find a mentor. Mentors can really um, elevate your career, like in an accelerated way. So yeah, I highly encourage finding a mentor, finding an ally, an advocate in within your company. But there are a lot of global nomads in your company, so finding that person, I guess, is key still, even if you're working from home, having a champion within the organization. So that means being proactive and networking, going out of your way to Zoom with people, build relationships. That's not easy. Yeah, I was quite bold actually when I was young. Okay, I remember that. But knowing how to develop a person from like a mentor to a champion, like how do you say, oh, well, can you speak up for me
mm,
to the other leaders? Like, I didn't know how to ask. I didn't know how to make my career moves clear to another person and say, I'd love your support.
yeah.
But when we ask, it's surprising, people will help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And on
Yeah.
that note, if you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice based on what you've learned, your life experiences, what would it be?
Yeah, yeah. And gosh, boiling it down to one is hard, because in the beginning of the book, I mentioned different lessons, or what I would have wanted to tell my younger self.
Yeah.
Um, I would have told her to, um, gosh, yeah, so much, so much. Be fearless. I would have wanted to tell her be fearless because there were so many times where I didn't take the job, where I didn't do something. I was held back because I had fear that, "Oh, what if I fail?" Right? And I regret that, but I don't want to sit in that regret. That's not who I am, and that's why I turned that into writing, and I wrote about it. And I think that's also key. Never ever regret. Move forward. Move forward with no negativity, and forgive your parents. That's part of what you were saying about healing the inner child, or letting go of the past, um, being able to embrace freedom, because now I feel very chill. I feel very go with the flow, right? I'm no longer um like clamoring or grasping or striving. um I want to do what I want to do, right? And I feel very free. It's yeah, I wish I had this when I was younger. And had I forgiven people, journaled, and been fearless, I probably would have.
And then we wouldn't be sitting here today with your book in your hand,
Oh
sharing
yeah.
this beautiful
Yeah.
journey that you've had
Oh
with people,
my gosh.
and definitely giving back. So it's a
Oh,
beautiful thing. And I'm really glad that we've come full circle in this interview
oh,
back to
thank
the
you.
point of fearlessness, because I
Thank
think
you.
it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, Sylvia, and thank you for
Oh,
sharing your story. And I completely agree. To the young people who are listening to us, the young females, be fearless. Don't worry about whether you can or can't. If you want to, you'll figure it out. Just take the
yeah.
leap of faith. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for this wonderful interview. I really enjoyed it. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Sylvia.
Yeah.
We've loved having you here with us, and thank you for taking the time. I know that you're really busy, so we do appreciate that. How do people reach out to you as we wrap things up? Like, is there
Oh,
anything you'd like people to know? Any upcoming
yeah.
speaking events? How do people book you for speaking events? Where can we
Yeah.
buy your book?
Yeah.
Give us a little overview.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, you can book me as a speaker on LinkedIn. And then I can give my email from there. My book is available on Kindle worldwide, and internationally, the paperback will be ready on December 29th. And the paperback book is right now in Singapore and Malaysia, and it will be in Jakarta end of the year. And thankfully, it sold out in the main bookstore in Singapore. So
Wow.
yeah, within a few weeks, I was quite surprised. And so yeah, I'd be honored if there are speaking engagements. But yeah, reach me on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to share my LinkedIn with you, Alexia. And
Perfect.
thank you. This has been such an enjoyable ride, such an
Thank you.
enjoyable interview. Really, really. Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sylvia. We'll be
Thank
sure to connect all of Sylvia's details in the description box below, the LinkedIn, whatever information, just different touch points where you can reach out to her. So, Sylvia, thank you once again for such a
thank
beautiful
you.
interview.
Thank
For
you.
our listeners at home, if you have any follow up questions that you'd like us to ask Sylvia, maybe we can have her back in future for another interview.
Thank you. You're great. Yeah, I just loved our time. It was fun.
Amazing. If you have any follow up questions, please drop it in the comment section below. Tell us what you enjoyed about this interview. If you have any ideas for future guests that you'd like to see on our channel, please let us know about that as well. Please subscribe to our channel if you like what we do. We would love the support. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on our social media platforms, and please stay tuned to see future episodes and who we will have next in store for you guys. So, Sylvia, once again, thank you so much. And we look forward to following your journey and hopefully having you back soon.
Thank you. Much love to you, Alexia, and to everyone. Lots of love. Take care.
Thanks, Sylvia. Straight back at you. Thank you.
Thank you.